August is going to be my very first time helping to co-host a readathon. Mashou at Bookwood has a really great YouTube channel. She was the first person to co-play my TBR game with me, and she produces content not just about books but also lots of planner content and content about her life in Belgium with her kids. She talks about the libraries they go to, the way they organise their days. It's just a brilliant channel and you really should check it out. Her readathon is going to be running for the entire month of August, and it is themed around two warring tribes that really existed in the area where she now lives. Even if you don't plan on taking part in this readathon, you should definitely go and look at her announcement video. The amount of work and the production values that have went into it are incredible. She has her kids out in the woods in costumes, acting out scenes for us with dramatic music overlaid. The whole thing's a real spectacle, and the amount of work that's went into it just shows you how she's really going to take care of us through this readathon. To boil the whole thing down, there are two teams. There are also 20 prompts, and every time you finish a prompt, you will get a word that you must add together to create a secret phrase. And the team that comes up with this secret phrase at the end of the month wins the readathon. Although there are 20 prompts, you don't have to read all 20. This is very, very much based on teamwork and cooperation. The team gathers these words together as a whole, so you might read prompt A and I might read prompt B, and we'll get both those words. So if you're someone that doesn't necessarily read a whole lot in a month, you don't have to feel like you're not contributing to your team, because you'll be getting words that people that read 10 books don't. I do have quite a lot planned for August. I have 2 or 3 buddy reads. I will be filming my own TBR game very soon, and August specifically I would like to really work through some of my NetGalley arcs and get those cleared. I am going to pick a book for each of the 20 prompts. I don't necessarily plan on getting to them all. I'll see what my team needs me to do, where we need to fill gaps, but I'm gonna have something in mind for everything just to give me that bit of direction and a little bit of guidance if I need to decide what I'm switching to. The prompts are all themed around trees, and the first is birch. It is a book with a white cover, and this is the only prompt where I have multiple options, just because when I was looking at white covered books, a few popped out at me that I forgot I'd added to my TBR, and I'm not quite sure what one I want to go for. My little stack of possibilities for this one is After Hours at Dooryard Books by Cat Sebastian. This is maybe a slightly off-white cover, but I think it works. Cat Sebastian writes really fantastic queer historical romances. I've really, really enjoyed every one that I've read. She does have an extensive backlist though, and I haven't really dug in as deep as I would like. This is one of her relatively new releases. It's set in 1968 New York City. In this one, we're following a bookshop owner and someone who is using said bookshop to hide out from the FBI. Another option would be Buried Deep and Other Stories by Naomi Novik. I bought this one with the intention of reading it for the Our Fantasy short story bingo square. I potentially have filled that one already with a different book, but I do really like this one. I've enjoyed Naomi Novik before. I just am sure that I don't know that I want to read short stories if I don't have to. So I might keep this just for next year's Our Fantasy, but maybe it would be a good one to chip away at over the course of the month. Finally, there is Deerskin by Robin McKinley. This for me would be a reread, but only in the sense of I read it when I was a preteen, a very, very long time ago. Deerskin is a YA retelling of the fairy tale Donkey Skin, and it does tackle the themes that come from that fairy tale. So there would be trigger warnings here for both incest and rape. From what I remember, although it's YA, this does tackle those topics with the weight they deserve, so it is quite a heavy read. I remember that it did make me uncomfortable in the way this story should, but that it was a very good read. I just don't know that I fully kind of connected with everything that was going on at the time, that I fully comprehended what was happening kind of in the subtext. So I would quite like to go back and give it a reread. Next prompt is Rowan, and it is the protection trope. For For this, I have picked an arc off my TBR shelf. This is The Final Curse of Ophelia Gray by Christine Calella. This is a story about women being pirates. It is about two half-sisters, and it is tagged with lesbian, but I don't actually see in the summary where that's going to come into it. I'm interested though in that sister dynamic, and it looks like we have one going off dressing up as a man to become a pirate, and the other sister, the more serious sister, having to chase after her to protect her. So maybe not fitting the, you know, hurt her and die, touch her and die, protection trope that we usually see in romance, but I think this one counts. For Alder, the prompt is a bird on the cover, and for this one, it's another reread. I really want to reread Swordheart by T. Kingfisher this month for the third or fourth or fifth time, because the sequel is coming out this month and I want to read the two together. So next we have Willow. The prompt is set near water, and for this I'm putting Where the Shadows Hide by Amy Clarkin. This is the third book in her What Walks These Halls or Paranormal Services, Paranormal Investigations Ireland, I think it's called. This is the third book in the trilogy. We are following essentially a group of YA, queer, Irish Ghostbusters. First two books. I really the kind of quirky concept, and in this one the team cases that are directly tied to their own backstories and trauma, but they have been hired by a luxury cruise ship to a series of inexplicable events. Primetime Travellers, Jared Plummer versus the Ancient World, a whimsical romance portal fantasy by Neil Laird. And I think that title probably tells you everything about the book. In this one, we have a TV director who starts having flashbacks to ancient Egypt. He goes through a portal, ends up there, and has to navigate the Egyptian underworld, retrieve a misplaced mummy, and all while trying to bring home an Emmy award-winning series. Hawthorne is to read a book with an academic setting, and academic settings can be hit and miss for me. I have found that I quite like light academia, so things like Murray Brennan or The Incandescent, whereas dark academia still just doesn't really work for me. The one that I have on this list I think is dark academia, but I was intrigued. It's very different from the usual type of contemporary romance I would pick up. It has a dystopian edge to it, but I'm interested in giving it a try. This is The Boyfriend Academy by J.S. Strange. Ganymedes is no ordinary boarding school. Behind its spiral towers and manicured lawns, boys are forged into the men society demands. Strong, obedient, perfect. Graduate and the world is yours. A home, a career, a wife. But fail and you're no longer useful to society. In amongst our group of boarding school boys, we're going to have a missing persons case, a queer romance, and a lot of finding yourself type of plotlines. For Oak and a book with a door on the cover, I'll be reading The House of Now and Then by Edward Underhill. This is a standalone contemporary queer romance featuring a trans man in his 30s who books a Cape Cod cottage for one lonely summer, only to have its magic bring him visitors from the past and romance when he least expects it. I've really enjoyed Edward Underhill in the past. I think it was Always the Almost. And I do have another of his books sitting on my physical shelf to get to. So I'm really excited to try more from this author. The prompt for Holly is to read a book with conflict in the story, and I think The Sins on Their Bones by Laura R. Samuelson is gonna hit that, I think. Set in a Jewish folklore-inspired reimagining of 19th century Eastern Europe, this LGBTQ+ dark fantasy debut pits two estranged husbands and a daring spy master on opposite sides of a civil war. This is pitched as perfect for fans of Leigh Bardugo, C.S. Pacat, and readers who love deliciously queer, spicy fantasy. So I definitely think we're going to get some conflict here. The prompt for Hazel Tree is a field or a road on the cover, and for this one I've picked 1 Week to Win the Chocolate Maker by Timothy Janowski. The concept of this is It's a spicy male retelling of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, which sounds completely cracktastic, but I have really enjoyed Timothy Janowski's books before. They're a lot of fun, and he, in the romance angle of it, often comes at things from a slightly different point of view, or gives kind of experiences that I wouldn't expect in contemporary romance. I've enjoyed all of them, or at least found something I found really interesting in them. So I'm assuming this will be the same, and that the Willy Wonka idea will be kind of, you know, muted down into something a little bit more reasonable. This is a competition book, I guess, set in an Italian villa. It sounds like it'll be a really good summery sunshine read. For Apple Tree, the prompt is a book where the MC has a choice to make. I think this is really open. I would imagine that almost any book would fit here, but for this one I am putting A World Apart by Megan Naismith. This is set in London 1866. We are following Kit, who wants to master the magic that keeps eluding him and to live a life not dictated by title or expectation. When a miscast spell tears open a doorway into the Vale, a liminal realm where Wilfirth and his family have been trapped since a fateful bargain with the Fairy Queen 800 years ago, Kit stumbles into a love he never imagined. Their connection is immediate, impossible, and undeniable. Determined to free will, Kit hunts for a spell that would bridge the two worlds. By night, Kit risks everything to reach the boy between worlds, desperate to bind the realms without breaking them. But by day, Kit finds himself intrigued by a young bohemian woman of a very wealthy aristocratic family. She's unlike any woman he's ever met, rebellious, clever, and best of all, she believes in magic. Torn between first love, magic, and duty, Kit will be forced to make a decision that will change all three of their lives forever. For Vine, the prompt is a crop or fruit on the cover, and I have picked the Pomegranate Gate by Ariel Kaplan. This is the first in a fantasy series inspired by Jewish folklore and 15th century Spain. It's pitched as for fans of The City of Brass and Strange the Dreamer. So I do think the writing is probably going to be quite lyrical and something that will maybe break up some of the easier reads that I have planned for the month. For Ivy, we're reading a book where we're in search of something, and for this one I have picked Treasures of Egypt, The Spear and the Scythe by Amir Salia. This is another ancient Egyptian inspired book, which I don't know, I guess I'm on a kick at the moment. In this we have a young girl desperate to save her sick, dying brother. She teams up with a young thief and they work together to steal a divine spear from the Temple of Ra. Unfortunately, they accidentally unleash Set, the shackled god of destruction, and start a series of events that threatens to plunge Egypt into chaos. To avert disaster, they are forced to navigate the realm of the gods and the dead and face off against mythical creatures in a dangerous adventure Set insists on calling the Grand Heist. So, I definitely think it fits for the in search of something prompt, and it's giving me maybe Percy Jackson vibes, so I think it'll be a good time and good fun. Then we have Read, and the prompt is to find out the truth. For this one I am picking 25 Days in Athens by Jack Strange. I've read Jack Strange before, I think it's called Look Up Handsome, and it's one that is set in a little Welsh book town that actually exists called Hay-on-Wye, where it's just all bookshops. That was a Christmas story, so this seems very much summer, which would be an interesting one to compare. In this, we are following Will, whose ex, Ollie, has just invited him to his Athens destination wedding to his new partner. Will agrees to go over and has 25 days in order to confess his love, the mistake he's made in breaking up with William. But while he's there, he runs into a childhood friend who he starts to develop feelings for. So it says, surrounded by the beauty and history of Athens, Will has 25 days to work out what it is he really wants. So in this, he's definitely trying to find out the truth of his own feelings. For the Blackthorn prompt, we can read either a book with an old woman, and that has to be a woman 50 plus or over, or a book about a witch. I'm picking The Vine Witch by Luann G. Smith. This is, I think, the book that has been on my NetGalley shelf the longest, and it's embarrassing how long this book has been out, and I've had it on so many TBRs, and I do think I started it and just wasn't vibing, but this time I'm determined to give it a really good shot. If nothing else, get it cleared off that NetGalley shelf. As far as I remember, it's kind of historical women's fiction with maybe magical realism or fabulism going on. The blurb just says, a young witch emerges from a curse to find her world upended in this gripping fantasy set in turn of century France. So I would like to give it a try and find out what I really think of it. For Elder, the prompt is to read a book with a creature from the other world. For this one, I'm going with Bone of My Bone by Joanna Van Veen. This will be the second Joanna Van Veen book I read. I really liked My Darling Dreadful Thing, but I didn't get around to the Blood on My Tongue book that just came out last year, and got loads of hype, was really popular. So this is her new one. 1635. Sister Ursula, a young nun fleeing from the ruins of her convent, and Elspeth, a sharp-witted peasant, escape a band of marauding soldiers and disappear into the Bavarian forest. War scorches the land and no one survives it alone. Amidst the devastation, they find something in the arms of a dying man, the gilded skull of a saint. It is said that if you reunite this saint's skull with her body, a wish will be granted. Desperate for salvation, and each with secret desires of their own, Ursula and Elspeth follow a ragged map across the blighted countryside. But darkness follows them. A necromancer drawn to the relic's power. The saint herself, whispering at night. And as the lines between blessing and curse blur, the women must face a harrowing truth. The magic they seek comes at a cost. At the journey's end, they'll find an impossible choice, one that could tear apart everything they know or bind them to each other forever. For Fur, the prompt is to read a book with greenery on the cover, and for this one I am putting The Tower of the Tyrant by JT Greathouse. This is one I first saw mentioned by B at Just Be Weird. It is one I have already purchased with an Everand credit, so I really want to get to it. I don't think I have enough audiobooks on this TBR now that I think about it. I'm really leaning heavily on Kindle eyeball reads, which might be my downfall, but this one is going to be an audio. It is a standalone fantasy, a land divided, a history inked in blood, one sorceress's quest for answers. The world beyond the City of the Wise is fraught with danger. Danger lies ahead for Fola, however she feels about it, and when events conspire to drag her into a cursed kingdom to investigate the death of its king, she's soon faced by threats from both the living and the dead. Fola will need to rely on her wits, her magic, and her unlikely friends if she's going to survive. I love a fantasy mystery. I will read anything, really, that's pitched as fantasy mystery. And I do think that this is going to be a really good one from the reviews. Next prompt is Petywin, and the prompt is to read a book with flowers on the cover. So this is where I'm going to put Daggerbound by T. Kingfisher. It's the sequel to Swordheart, and it exists in the same universe. I'm not sure if this one would be slightly before. The Paladins series, the Saints of Steel Quartet, so Paladins, Grace, Strength, Hope, those ones. I love this universe, I love this world, I love T. Kingfisher in general, if I'm honest, but I specifically adore Swordheart. It is probably top 3 books of all time, so I've been chewing at the bit, so I've been chomping at the bit for this book, a sequel to Swordheart, forever, it feels like. And in the meantime, Kingfisher has put out those Paladins books, which are fantastic, but not the sequel to Swordheart. So I'm very excited about Daggerbound, which also looks like it's going to have a male-male romance, which is just another wonderful touch. I will have to time this a little bit because I want to reread Swordheart before I get to this one, so I just need to make sure that I tackle the prompts in that order. 400 years ago, 3 warriors were trapped inside enchanted swords, cursed to be immortal servants of whoever wielded the blade. One of them is the dervish, a restless, fiery soul who hates his captivity and hates his wielders even more, but has never found a way to escape the sword's magic. One day, a disillusioned scholar named Learned Edmund is tasked with delivering the sword to a distant city and, in the greatest of peril, draws the blade. The dervish finds himself bound to a sweet, brilliant, and above all, kind young man. And while he may be able to protect Edmund from bandits, cultists, dragons, and strange inhuman diplomats, he may find it much harder to protect his own heart. For Heather, the prompt is to read something cozy. I'm going to put a cozy mystery here and read A Skeleton in the Family by Lee Perry, which is the Cozy Mystery Book Club pick of the month. This is a paranormal cozy with a cover and a title, a concept that I really, really like. I don't know anything about it. It's the first in a series. I'm looking forward to giving it a try. And again, something to break up all of the fantasy that at the moment my TBR is stacked with. In this, we have a family who have an actual skeleton that lives with them. Like, he's a person, he lives with them. We're following Georgia, who has just returned home, and Sid the skeleton convinces her to take him out of the house. She takes him to an anime convention, disguised as a skeleton, of course. He sees a woman who triggers memories of his past. Now he's determined to find out how he died with Georgia's help, but their investigation may uncover a killer who is still alive and well and bad to the bone. So this one sounds very quirky and a little bit different from most cozy mysteries, so I'm intrigued to try it. Poplar is a book that scares you, and for this I am putting Paladin's Hope by T. Kingfisher, the third T. Kingfisher of the month. And as I said, this one fits into that Saints of Steel quartet I was just talking about. This is the third book. We are following a different romantic pairing in each book, but there is a kind of general overarching story going on. This is a reread for me, and it's as far as I got in the 4 books originally, but it was my favourite of the 3 I've read. Having reread the first 2 along with Faye and her Discord group for the past couple of months, I've enjoyed each one more than I did the first time, so I'm very excited to see what happens with Paladin's Hope. I'm really looking forward to rereading it because I know I loved it, and it's been really great to see everyone enjoying this series. It'll also then set me up for finishing the series in 2 months' time. Then finally, the prompt is You and an Old Book. And for this, I'm putting Gaelic by Vincent Varga. I talked about this one already really recently in my Pride Bingo TBR video. Gaelic is the first queer gothic romance. It came out back in the 80s. And ever since I've been aware of it, it's been just either impossible or absolutely exorbitant to buy, because the only copies available were original physical copies. And then I think last year it was digitized for the first time, and it's now available to get on Kindle. So I've been looking forward to reading it for a really, really long time. Not just because I do love a good gothic romance, I really do. All the tropes of like women in their 90s running through the hallways with candles is absolutely my jam. I love things like Crimson Peak. But the fact it's a queer gothic romance is fantastic, and I do even more so love queer gothic romances. But it's so interesting because it's the first one, and it came out so long ago when you think about that we're only just starting to get kind of the queer gothic romances coming back into the genre. I am aware that the writing of this might be obviously kind of dated of its time, it might be a little bit harder, but I'm really, really excited to read it. And so this is one I've been wanting to read for a long time. It's sitting on my Kindle. It was sitting on my Kindle the day it came out. I'm looking forward to reading it. It's maybe not exactly fitting the weather vibe the way some of these other contemporary summer romances are, but maybe it'll help me segue into some of the spookier vibes, into the magical readathon for September. We'll see. So those are the 20 prompts, and technically I have 23 potential reads that are on my TBR for this. The readathon is a little bit hectic, I think, in that yes, we read a book to get a word and we need to combine all the words to get a phrase, but different prompts will come and go in different weeks. So I don't know exactly in what order I'm going to tackle these, other than I would like to get to Sword Heart quite early so that I'm free to read Daggerbound when it fits. I do have to do my own TBR game, as I said, before I'm completely sure, but hopefully now I know what ones I'm going to try to fill first. And most of them are arcs, which works well for those arc August goals that I forever try and fail to clear out. It's fine. If you're interested in Mashou's readathon, I definitely recommend at least go watch the announcement video. As I said, it's a production in its own right. It's well worth watching. I admittedly was a little bit confused by how the readathon worked when I first went through it. There's, like I said, there's quite a lot of moving parts, but she's got it all explained. There's documents, there's the video, there's a really active and fun Discord. We're tracking books, helping each other out, preparing for this readathon. I think it's going to be a really good one. I'm really excited that this is the one that it's my first one co-hosting. So if you want to jump over to Mashou's video and then jump over to her Discord, come and join us. It'll be fun, I promise. Let me know if any of these books tickle your fancy. Let me know if you have decided to take part, and if you have, which of the two teams you are joining. If you just want to show me that you made it this far, then leave some kind of tree emoji in the comments. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you during the course of the readathon and in the next video.